Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome back, Championship Leadership Podcast. And I got David-Paul Cavazos with Hodgman County Health Center in Kansas. And appreciate you coming here today. Thanks for being here.
Thank you very much, Nate. I'm glad to be here. Glad to be talking with you.
Yeah, absolutely. So I do like to ask this question first to all my guests. Championship Leadership is the name of the podcast. So what comes to mind for you when you hear championship leadership? Like, what does that mean to you when you hear that?
To me, when I hear championship leadership, I think it really, it brings to mind a lot of qualities in terms of personal sacrifice and service. I really don't see how you can separate service from leadership. I think people agree to follow your leadership. It's because that's just it. They're agreeing to it, right? It's not like being a supervisor of a shift at a fast food place where you're telling them to do something because they have to. Leadership is different. Leadership is those people are going to get up and come into work every morning to be a part of your organization, what you have going on, because they believe in the mission, that kind of thing.
Yeah, absolutely. 100%. Well, why don't you tell us a little bit about you and what you're doing and kind of maybe even the path that's taken you to where you are? Because I know we met a couple of weeks ago, maybe it was, and I know you're a CEO in healthcare, and of course, your life has been probably much more interesting than many of us, and everything that you've had to deal with the pandemic and some of those the uniqueness that's brought that to what you guys do. But yeah, share a little more in depth on what it is that you do and what you're up to today.
Yeah, well, currently I'm the CEO for Hodgman County Health Center. We're a small critical access hospital in Western Kansas. I've been in healthcare for 25 years total. The first 17 of it, I was on the radiology side, kind of came up as an X-ray tech, worked my way up through the hospital ranks, and was lucky enough to be smiled upon when I was radiology director by a CEO that really inspired me and pulled me aside and told me that I'd make a good leader and that I should look into going back to school for hospital CEOship. So here I am today.
Got it. Yeah, love it. Who are, kind of, I guess that's a good segue really, but who are some of the leaders, coaches, mentors that you've had? And I always am more curious, really, like, what are some of the characteristics of those leaders that have really stood out to you and maybe are you've even taken to help model who you are as a leader as well inside of your life?
There's been a number of really strong. I've been thankful enough to work at both large and small hospitals. And when I was just an X-ray tech at a very large hospital, 400 bed hospital starting out, there was a CEO there, and I won't give his name, but he was so instrumental in basically showing me what kind of leadership style I wanted to emulate should I ever get the chance. And This was even before I was ever interested in being a hospital CEO. But right. in large hospitals, often it's hard to connect with everybody. But this gentleman, he made me feel like he knew me. And in fact, I can say that he knew me. He knew me. He knew my situation. He knew what was going on in my life. He made it a point to know people that were his employees. He was there for quite a few years, and I know that I got to a point where I was coming into work because I wanted to work for that man who ran that hospital. That was a really good feeling. And that was something I encountered early on, even before I was on my own CEO journey.
Yeah, I think, for me, that's always one of the biggest, when I'm to define championship leadership, I think one of the biggest characteristics is that, that leader that's able to pull more out of people than they are themselves. And in a way, like you just said, or, inspiring them to be really excited about what they're doing and to come to work. Maybe even when it's a job that they aren't that inspired by, but there's just something about the person that they're working with or for that's leading that organization that just makes them still excited to come in and work.
Yeah, absolutely. There's, when the COVID pandemic came through the nation, it really did a number on healthcare. We had a lot of older, senior, experienced people in healthcare, both on the clinical side, on the leadership side. And a lot of them left. A lot of them said, this is really stressful. This is too
Yeah.
much. I want out. And so we lost a lot of really well long-term experienced people when COVID hit. And so I do feel like these days in hospital leadership positions, there's a shortage. There's a shortage
Mhm.
of good leaders. There's a shortage of leaders who inspire their workers. Today, you're left with a different type of worker than you were pre 2.5 years ago. You
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
pre-pandemic, there's the worker today is a lot more finicky.
Yeah.
Loyalty in organization is not as strong. Part of that is the worker. I think also part of that is the leader, though. I think,
Hmm.
in order to convince people to be a part of your organization, because everybody has choices these days, right? The
Yeah.
patients have choices in terms of who they're going to pick to service their healthcare needs. The employees also have choices. And
Yeah.
I think there's
Right.
a shortage today of those leaders that make the employees say, hey, I want to come in to work for this person.
Yeah.
There's,
Yeah.
we have a few of them out there, but on a whole across the industry, there's a shortage, especially in the larger facilities. I feel that way.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know what to do about that, or how to increase that. Maybe you have some ideas, but I've been saying that to myself is, I think now more than ever, it just feels like we need more leaders to step up.
Yeah, I think a lot of it has to do with kind of, not to be cheesy or anything, but kind of to quote Simon Sinek, it really has to do with your why.
Hmm.
Why do you do what you do? Why do you choose to be a hospital CEO? Because you take a lot of heat in the
Yeah.
leadership office, right?
Yeah.
You're responsible. If there's a nurse that's doing something horrible on your night shift in the ER, and maybe you're over a 400 bed facility,
Yeah.
you might not have even ever met this nurse. They might have only hired her
Right.
2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
You are responsible for her actions. Uh, and so responsibility is a very heavy weight. To accept the
Hmm.
responsibility for
Yep.
the people that work underneath you is very heavy weight. Uh, so it's, I feel like maybe some of it is experience, maybe some of it is inspiration, some of it's passion. There's a lot of that sprinkled in there. If you don't truly like and care about what you're doing, it's a tough place to be.
Yeah, definitely. So, I you talked about when you first started in the healthcare industry, being an X-ray tech, and I, I don't know, maybe you did, but I don't imagine you were like, man, I'm going to be a CEO of a hospital at some point in my life. So, but there obviously must have been something about you that definitely, wanted to lead and was willing to take that responsibility on that you're just talking about, that's led to that. But yeah, how did that journey come about?
I was actually I guess I'm gonna put myself out there a little bit. I was a horrible worker.
Yeah.
I, I was a good worker. I had a bad attitude. I had the attitude that upper management, upper executive leadership wasn't needed. I had the mentality and the wrong belief that only the clinical side of healthcare mattered. And
Mm,
here's the thing: healthcare is there is so much business to healthcare. There is so much
yeah.
bureaucracy. There is so much red tape. It really does take an entire team, a village. It's not just about one person. It's not just the nurse or the doctor that sees you. In order to make an entire facility run, it is a team of people. It is housekeepers. It is dietary workers. It is maintenance. It is,
Hmm.
um, you know, management. It is upper executive management to make the whole wheel spin. Now, some are good, some are bad. Every organization has its problems. Um, there's good leaders and there's bad leaders, just like there
Yep.
is workers.
Right.
Uh, but those few key people that I had in my life that really I kind of took to, and it was probably only a handful, maybe two, maybe three at most, that I can recall that had an effect on me being a leader, but they inspired me. I worked for them for a very short period of time, and it was enough to make a difference that I knew that any other organization that I was a part of, I wanted it to run just like they ran their organization.
Got it. Yeah,
And
that makes sense.
that was one of the key things, the belief that I too could emulate what they had, what
Hmm.
they brought to the table, that I could create the same kind of environment that they created in my day, in my month, in my year. I was already in healthcare because I knew I wanted to make a difference.
Right.
That's why
Right.
I came through the doors every morning. But when I looked around me and I saw the way that certain people reacted when they were working underneath a good leader, I became inspired. And I was like, gosh, I want to do that.
Gotcha. Yeah, that makes total sense. What's the vision for you, in charge of a healthcare facility, and or maybe it's personally, I guess, but in the next short term, time feels like it flies by faster and faster as we get older, but maybe the next 5-10 years max. What's the vision for you, and what's more importantly, the impact that you're looking to make as the CEO of a health center?
I think the impact is always local. The impact is always in the now. What can you do today? I like to think in terms of a 1 year, 3 year, 5 year, and 10 year plan, right?
Yep.
So for my facility, I've got lots of big plans. For my facility, I'd really like to change things. I'm very passionate about rural healthcare. I think I'm guilty of the same thing. When I lived in a city and a large urban area, I didn't even acknowledge, I'd completely forgotten about rural healthcare. There's so many aspects to healthcare. I wish I could tell every young adult coming up all the different ways that they can help people. There's the mental side of healthcare. That one's really big right now.
Yeah, right.
But there is such a large need that I feel it's kind of one of those things where you'll go wherever you're needed. I don't want to limit myself. I think that I welcome the chance to have a greater effect on a greater community. But wherever I am, that's where I'll be doing my daily work, my daily effort to change, to make the environment around me better. There's just a very simple statement of start where you are.
Yeah, right. So. What is that something, I feel like it's important, obviously, as a leader, to be able to communicate that as well as that. And then you got to constantly communicate it, right? So how do you go about that?
It takes a while people don't just, the first day you meet them, they don't just walk through the door and automatically, boom, they're on board with you, right? It takes time to earn people's trust, especially these days. It takes time. It takes often struggle. A lot of times you have to go through things with people. And many times in job situations, almost all of us have had a bad boss, right? We've had a bad supervisor, bad boss. Yeah. You can almost always name somebody that you didn't like that you worked for, and great people that you actually enjoyed working for. And so learning to gain people's trust takes patience. It takes a matter of, there's a lot of putting yourself out there to let them know that you're here for them. Getting to know your employees, taking the time. A big thing too is a lot of leaders say, oh, you need to round. And I fully agree with that. I do think and I think that's a lesson that could be very valuable, not just on the healthcare side, but in personal business sides, right? I once knew a man that owned 11 McDonald's, and you would think as a multi-millionaire owning 11 McDonald's, he didn't really need to do much, right? It's kind of a forget a thing, but he spent his days, his mornings, his afternoons, his evenings going to his McDonald's, going to the night shift. And that's a very big part of it too, is don't forget about your night shift. Don't forget about your night shift. That's for the first 4 years of my healthcare career. I worked the night shift. I loved it. There's a whole separate culture that exists, almost a closer bit of a tight knit team on a night shift or a weekend shift.
Yeah.
Don't forget about
that. Yeah. When I was deployed to Kuwait in the Army, my platoon, we were the night shift, and for the whole time. And so I could definitely relate to what you're saying there. And you know what? Our company commander, our first sergeant, they never came out to see us there. And I was like, that always bugged me. And I was always like, man, if that was me, I would definitely be out. Like, you got to get out and see. It doesn't matter what time they're working. Like, they're still your people, and you don't have to be there every night, but you got to show your face, a couple times throughout a year-long deployment. So anyways, that just brings me back to that, and totally agree with that.
And that's the strange thing is, if you ever read a lot of history books or anything like that, I like to read about a lot of leaders in history. one of the commonality that I always read about is that all the great leaders that you think of, whether it's leadership in war or anything like that throughout history, the one commonality is that they were with their people, right?
Hmm.
They were with their men, they were with their women, they were with the people on the front lines. They were always with them.
Yeah.
Right?
Yep.
So there's a commitment in leadership, and that's kind of where I go back to, is that making yourself that available doesn't appeal to many people.
Yeah.
Most people want to go to sleep at night. Most people don't want you.
Yeah.
Can you imagine giving your cell phone number out to 200 people?
Yeah.
And you genuinely tell them, hey, here in your department, if you have a problem and it's 9:30 at night, call me and I will do what I can to help you.
Yeah.
That's a big extend on your part, right?
Yeah, it
That's
is.
a lot of commitment. And one time in the year that need might be tested, right?
Right. Yeah.
You might have somebody call you out of the environmental services, out of the housekeeping department, and say, hey, the night shift manager isn't here. I don't know what to do. I've tried to call her several times. And that might be the one time she reaches out to the CEO. You know?
Right. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. What's like a critical moment for you? So, kind of that fork in the road. You chose the way you did, which has you where you are today, but had you made a different decision, would be somewhere very different side of your life. I think there's a lot of power in others that are in those moments right now, currently, that, can get power from hearing, how others have chose during certain similar situations. So is there a moment that comes to mind to you as I kind of ask that question?
You mean that affected me going down this path?
Yeah. Well, I mean, just a moment in life where, it's a tough decision, right? We want to kind of know what's going to happen before we make the decision, which just, isn't a reality, right? So had you made that decision, differently, you could be somewhere a very different side of your life. You did choose the way you did, which has you where you are today. But, I think people, especially over the last 2.5 years, they've, like some of the people that you talked about, right? You've been around for a long time, a lot of experience and wisdom and knowledge, and man, this is tough. And I'm not sure I want to do this. So they were in that moment, they made the decision that they did, and maybe they regret it right now. Maybe they don't. So does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. I think something I would have, if I could have gone back and could tell my younger self anything, I think I wish that I could have started earlier, in terms of, I think amongst the younger people, probably for many young people, be it women and men, they don't have the belief that they can be in the leadership spot, right? Because a lot of times when you're a younger adult, your life is very disorganized. You're doing good just to graduate school, find a career, right? Yeah. I mean, your life might be in so much turmoil, personal life. Maybe you have relationship issues. Maybe you have childcare issues and you're a young parent. Maybe this, maybe that, right? So it's really hard to even think about the idea of caring for others from an employee perspective, right? You're doing good just to show up on time, often when you're a young adult. But breaking out of that mold to realize that it really is a team effort. And the same reason that you're there at work every day, at least in healthcare, caring for your patients, there will be other employees throughout your career which will need your help. And if you in your mind think that you might want to help them, you might possibly be a good candidate for leadership, right? Yeah. If you're a nurse on a floor and you just started and it's your first week, and you see things maybe are run not so well, or maybe they run well underneath a certain shift. Several years down the road, once you get some experience under your belt, you may get the opportunity to be a manager of a particular department of a certain floor. And that might start your journey off on climbing the levels to see how you can have a greater effect and do the right thing. There's not enough people in the world. I tell this to a lot of people every day. There's not enough people in the world that do the right thing. Yeah. Sometimes it's scary. Sometimes you might stand as an outsider doing the right thing. As a CEO leader, I tell this to my children, you should always do the right thing. That is such a hard few set of words to live up to. Mm-hmm. It is very difficult. Many times when I do the right thing, it's an unpopular choice. Many times it goes against the grain. Yeah. But at the end of the night, you know, you have to go to sleep with your decisions. And if you feel good that you did the right thing on that day, then many times that's really all you can ask for.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I love that. What's as we start to wrap this up, if there's one or two things that you could give to the listeners that, you know, if they were to implement today would help move their life forward today, a little life advice or principles to live by, what would that be for them?
Be nice to somebody in your day, some random person, or somebody, you know, just take the opportunity to be nice to somebody. It makes a big difference in many people's day, whether it's a coworker, maybe it's somebody you don't ever talk to at work. Just take the random chance to be nice to somebody. And number two, I would say, make an effort on the opportunity that you would normally shy away from, right? Even if maybe that for you is just speaking up at a meeting where you normally sit quiet, right?
Yeah.
Because you don't want to offend those around you, or you might think that your opinion might not be valued. Take the opportunity, put yourself out there. You might be surprised the direction life will take you.
Yeah. Yeah. Awesome. Appreciate that. What's if they're, you know, someone's listening to this and they like what they heard, they want to reach out, maybe they have a question about something you said, or want to follow you on, are you on social media? Is there any way to contact you, get a hold of you?
So yeah, I'm actually on LinkedIn. That is unfortunately my only social media. I'm not on any of the other social media formats. But yeah, if you're on LinkedIn, reach out to me. I'd love to connect with people. Love to share stories. Love to know what's going on in their world. And yeah, reach out to me.
Awesome. Well, I appreciate it. Thank you, David-Paul, for being here. And it was a great conversation. Thanks for coming.
Yeah, Nate, you have a great week.